I wanted to buy an orc that could only satisfy my desires. But instead, I ended up with a venting type orc that was used as a punching bag by others. So, when I was ready to vent, the cat female orc screamed. Not this kind of venting. I'm not that kind of orc. Chapter 1. I was drunk. I sat at the entrance of the bar, smoking to sober up. A street vendor cautiously approached, lowering his voice and said, "Sir, you look like you have a lot of stress. Would you like to vent?" He continued, "I have a venting type orc that could help relieve some of your stress." I waved my hand to clear the smoke and asked, "What?" The vendor quickly looked around to make sure no one was around, then waved at a figure not far away, calling the orc over. It was a fiery, cat-like orc. She was tall and slender, with a narrow waist and long legs, her chest full and firm. As she stood in front of me, the dim, yellow bar light cast a glow on her smooth, delicate skin, which gleamed like warm jade. Before I could react, the vendor grabbed the collar around her neck, pulling her to her knees on the ground. He removed the rusty bite stopper, pulling her golden white hair back. She tilted her head back, revealing her full face. Her skin was as pale as jade. Her nose was high and well-shaped. Her lips were a soft pink, but there were bruises around her eyes and on her cheeks. Her round leopard ears trembled slightly. Her emerald-like eyes were fixed on me, wild like a beast. The vendor slapped her face hard and said, "Sir, take a look at this face. Wouldn't it feel great to hit it?" I swallowed nervously, feeling a twinge of desire. She was exactly my type. Plus, the doctor said my liver fire was too strong, and I definitely needed to release some of that energy. However, I already had a cat-like female orc at home. Sophia might mind. Seeing my hesitation, the vendor kicked her and said, "Get up, show the sir your figure." She stood slowly. Her body was bound by chains, and she struggled to remove her outer clothing, revealing a full chest and long, toned thighs, quite alluring, but her skin was covered in bruises and contusions. The vendor quickly put the bite stopper back on her, then grabbed her arm and said, "Sir, feel this, her legs, her figure. It feels amazing." He continued, $2,000, 2 hours to vent. Do whatever you want. Just don't slit her throat and let her bleed out." I was utterly shocked. Slit her throat and let her bleed out. I was taken aback. Had people's fetishes really become that extreme? It was terrifying. Oh well, since the one at home doesn't let me touch her, this one is cheap, perfect for bringing home a docile one. I stood up, a bit dizzy from the alcohol, and asked, "How much to buy her outright?" "Heh, it's not cheap." The vendor rubbed his hands together, saying, "She's our best product." I waved my hand and said, "Name your price." He replied, "I'll give you a lucky number, 58,888. I froze for a moment. Sophia, my service-type cat-like female orc, was something my parents had spent millions to buy for me, and this one was so cheap. Seeing my silence, the vendor grew anxious and asked, "Is it too expensive?" He added, "Then let's make it a round number, 58,000. Chapter 2. In the end, I bought Willow for 50,000. I didn't really want to go home, so I took her to a hotel. Before I left, the vendor gave me countless warnings. She really likes to snort, and until she's fully tamed, I should never take off her bite stopper. It's also best not to remove the chains. Chapter 3. In the hotel suite, Willow huddled in the entrance, too scared to move. She was like a frightened little animal, waiting for misfortune to come. After I took a shower, I didn't dare take off her shackles. I said, "Go take a shower too." She pursed her lips, lowered her gaze, and walked into the bathroom. The sound of water running echoed through the room. A few minutes later, I knocked on the door. I left my phone inside. I expected her to pass the phone out to me, but instead, the door slowly opened. Willow turned her back to me. Her curvaceous body was quite revealing. Her skin was unnaturally pale, which made the scars all the more shocking. Water trickled down the rusty chains, mixed with black stains and blood, following the enticing curve of her back, meandering down her waist. Eventually, it pooled around her calves and slowly drained into the floor drain. Her long tail drooped, trembling slightly. Unlike Sophia's soft, smooth, shiny fur, Willow's tail had a dry, dull texture. It looked fragile yet wild. I was momentarily distracted. Unconsciously, I gently touched her wounds. Willow shivered and asked, "What are you doing?" It was the first time I heard her voice. It was cold, deep, with a hint of a mature, magnetic tone. I cleared my throat and casually replied, "Venting." Her hand, which hung by her side, clenched tightly. She said, "It's not that." I asked, "What?" She let out a few soft sighs and said, "It's not venting like this." I scratched my head and said, "Maybe I don't have much experience. Please bear with me." I lifted her into bed and carefully kissed each of her wounds. She wore the collar and unconsciously gripped the chain, obediently letting me do as I pleased. Her body remained stiff, as if she didn't know how to react. Just as I was about to go further, she suddenly pushed against my chest and asked, "Are you sure?" I was puzzled. "Sure about what?" She looked at me, her eyes red-rimmed, and said, "I'm just a lowly orc." In response, I couldn't wait any longer and continued with my actions. She let out soft breaths, closing her eyes, her long eyelashes trembling lightly. Chapter 4. Early morning. The sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, warm and soft against my skin. I glanced at Willow, still asleep in my arms, and reached under the pillow with my other hand to grab my phone. I saw a WeChat message from my buddy. "Fuck, you drank halfway and ran off. You're skipping out on the bill. Huh." I quickly transferred the money and typed back, "No, I just completely forgot about you. Yesterday, I bought a venting type orc and got busy venting." My buddy replied with a string of question marks and said, "George, how can you be like this? I know that your orc at home is misbehaving and it's annoying, but you can't just get a venting type to beat up." He continued, "You can't even bear to hit your high-end cat at home, but now you're venting your anger on some stray cat. If you weren't my bro, I'd call the cops right now. I really misjudged you." I was stunned by his scolding. I replied, "No, I didn't hit her. How could I hit her?" There was a pause on the other side. He seemed to understand something and then said, "So how did you vent then?" I answered, "Just like you think, vented." We both fell silent. My buddy explained, "A venting type orc is part of an illegal industry. They steal or buy low-grade orcs, or even young orcs, and then select those with good physical and recovery abilities to be used for venting. The ones that pass the selection often end up being live punching bags for people to beat up and relieve stress. Some of them even end up in underground death fights. These orcs are pitiful, but they're notoriously difficult to tame. After they're rescued by official organizations, they're open for free adoption. If no one adopts them, they'll be euthanized." But before I could respond, a woman's voice came from behind. "If you regret it, I know a place where you can find that vendor." I was startled, quickly dimming the phone screen and turning to face Willow's dim eyes. She lowered her gaze, avoiding my eyes. She spoke softly. "He's part of an organized group, and most likely won't give you your money back." She bit her lip and said, "But, if we catch him alone, maybe I can." I cut her off. "I don't regret it," I added firmly, "as long as you obey me. Only listen to me." She murmured in response. Her expression didn't change, but her ears twitched. There were several faint scars on her fluffy ears. I couldn't resist reaching out to touch her round ears, but she immediately tensed and pulled them back, avoiding my touch. I withdrew my hand, feeling a little disappointed. Why won't she let me touch them? She pressed her lips together and said, "Sorry, I'm just not used to it yet." She slowly relaxed her ears and tilted her head, saying, "You can touch them now, if you still want to." I didn't hesitate. I wrapped one arm around her and with the other hand, I freely began to rub her ears. They were soft, warm. Willow's breath grew more erratic, and her body became increasingly heated. She tilted her head slightly back, her beautiful eyes reddening at the corners as she stared at me, unblinking. I swallowed hard and asked, "Can I vent again?" Chapter 5. Leaving the hotel, I didn't head directly home. Instead, I took Willow to the orc clinic. The doctor said her healing ability was very good. The bruises on her body weren't a concern, but she was severely malnourished and would need to take various special supplements for a long time. The total cost of all the supplements added up to more than her worth. Willow shook her head. "I don't need them." She tightly wrapped her arms around mine and said, "Master, I can eat anything. You don't need to spend money. I won't die." To put this in perspective, this amount of money was just the cost of snacks Sophia bought every month. I said, "It's fine." I pinched her cheek and handed her the newly chosen collar and bite stopper, a thin black leather collar. I had originally not wanted Willow to wear these anymore, but the doctor insisted. He said, "Don't be fooled by the wild orc's appearance. She could bite your neck off in one go." I could only choose the most comfortable style possible. While removing the bite stopper, the doctor asked Willow, was she a venting type or a fight arena type? Willow lowered her head even more, her voice soft as she said, "I've done both." "No wonder," the doctor said, handing me the old bite stopper. "Look at these teeth marks. She must have bitten it when the pain was too much to bear." Willow bit her lip and said, "That was from last night." I froze. Her crying and moaning from last night flashed through my mind. The doctor casually asked, "Was it in the fight arena?" She replied, "No." Willow raised her eyes to look at me. Her cheeks flushed, and she said, "It was, when I was being used for venting." Chapter 6. We got home just past midnight. My parents were already fast asleep. Sophia was probably sleeping in my brother's room. The cold, harsh white light in the hallway was the only thing that greeted me. "Please come in." I took off my jacket and turned to look at Willow. The cold light swept across her delicate nose, landing on her red lips. She didn't move, her gaze fixed on the collar discarded on the floor. I picked it up and said, "This is Sophia's." Sophia was the service-type orc my parents gave me as compensation. They gave her to me for the 15 years they had lost me. I went missing when I was 5, and they only found me again when I was 20. When I returned home, I learned that my parents had adopted another child from the orphanage, Makoto. He had been adopted as a baby, and now at 16, he was in his rebellious phase. He was extremely emotional when he found out I had come back. He couldn't accept that he was adopted. He yelled at me, grinding his teeth. "Get the hell out if you don't want to die. This is my family. They are my parents. You think you can compete for inheritance? You're nothing but a beggar. Get out." My mom softly tried to calm him down. "Makoto, don't worry. You'll always be our son. Your brother coming back doesn't mean we'll push you away. We'll still treat you like our own son, just like before." My dad also tried to comfort me, saying, "Your brother's still young and doesn't understand. You're the older one, so try to be more understanding with him." In the past, with my temper, I would have slapped Makoto across the face, but I was 20 now, no longer the short-fused person I used to be. Now, I was in an age where I craved money desperately. I didn't argue. I just nodded faintly, saying, "Don't worry, Dad," and added, slowly and firmly, "I'll make sure to understand my place and be more considerate of my brother's feelings." However, I don't know which words triggered him, but Makoto suddenly kicked the dining table over and, before anyone could react, punched me in the face. I turned my head and fell to the ground. Playing the pity card was really effective. The living expenses in my bank account kept increasing every month. On my first birthday in the new home, my parents gave me $1 million service-type orc, a high-grade cat type, Sophia, as compensation. My dad said, "George is too solitary, so we're giving you a pet, hoping it can help you become more cheerful and outgoing." At that time, Sophia was still just a little kitten in her untransformed state. Makoto got upset again. He yelled, "Why does he have one and I don't? Is this what you call treating me like your real son? Since you're so biased, since you dislike me so much, fine, I'll leave. I'll tell you, I'd rather starve to death outside than come back." With that, he grabbed Sophia and ran out the door, disappearing. The birthday party was ruined. The birthday gift was gone. My parents were in a complete panic, crying every day. I also deeply regretted it and apologized, saying, "Sorry, Mom and Dad, it's all my fault." I pushed Makoto away. It wasn't until more than 10 days later, one afternoon, that Makoto, along with Sophia, appeared at our doorstep, covered in dirt and looking exhausted. He said, "Mom, Dad, I'm hungry. I was wrong. I won't run away again." My parents rushed over to hug Makoto, and the three of them cried together. After a while, my dad turned around and suddenly remembered that I was still there, feeling out of place. His expression instantly turned guilty. He turned and slapped Makoto hard across the face. Makoto was stunned. "Dad, you hit me," he yelled. "Do you know how I've been living for these past 10 days? I finally come back, and you hit me." My dad angrily shouted. "Did you ever think about how your brother has been living for these past 10 years? Father pulled my mom, who had tried to comfort Makoto, back and said, word by word, "If you ever go against your brother again, I will disown you." From then on, Makoto didn't openly go against me anymore. After he returned Sophia to me, she soon transformed. Silver-white curly hair, almond-shaped eyes with the corners slightly drooping. She looked at me, tilted her head, and said her first transformed name, "Ma." "Makoto, I'm Makoto." Makoto rushed forward from behind me, his tone excited. "Sophia, you remember me? Do you remember when I took you and we wandered the streets, surviving together?" Sophia replied, "I remember." Sophia jumped into his arms, her tail wagging happily. She said, "I remember everything about Makoto." My parents sighed and patted my shoulder to comfort me. When Sophia realized that I was actually her true master, she sulked for a long time. I tried every way to coax her every day, and she reluctantly accepted me as her master, but she remained proudly unwilling to let me touch her. She didn't wait for me to come home like other orcs either. She only responded to Makoto's footsteps. I, like a useless master, watched them interact with a lost expression, but deep down, I didn't mind, because as long as I was her master, her huge monthly living expenses were charged to my card, and my parents' silent guilt was also steadily transferred to my account. But recently, I started getting frustrated. Sophia still wouldn't let me touch her. Then Willow appeared at just the right moment. I had no reason to refuse. Chapter 7. I said, "Why don't you sleep with me tonight?" I took Willow's hand and led her to the bedroom. I added, "I'll take you shopping for clothes tomorrow." She asked, "Won't she mind?" I turned back to look at her and said, "Who?" She replied, "Sophia." She looked up at me and said, "Cat-type orcs have strong territorial instincts." I laughed. "She won't mind. She doesn't like sleeping with me." Willow seemed to remember something and tightened her grip on my hand. She said, "Then, Do you still need it tonight? I asked. Need what? Her ears turned a faint red as she said. Venting, I replied. I do, but we went on for a while yesterday, and I'm a bit tired today. She, however, blushed and said, I can do it myself. You can just lie down, I said. Then I'll leave it to you, she responded. It's not a bother. Chapter 8. George. In the morning, I happened to step out of the bedroom at the same time as Sophia. She shot me a glance and said, Did you have trouble sleeping last night? I kept tossing and turning. The bed was creaking nonstop. It was really noisy. I wasn't upset. I shrugged and said, Sorry, I'll be more mindful next time. Her tone softened a bit, and with a light hum, she said, Also, when you watch those videos at night, could you turn the sound down? Willow can't help but be loud sometimes. She leaned in close, lightly biting her lip, and said, If you can't sleep, I could. Her words were cut off by Makoto. Sophia, don't walk around barefoot. You'll catch a cold. Sophia replied, My slippers are in the living room, she said as she put on her bunny slippers from the sofa and went back to Makoto's room. Makoto lazily asked, Idiot, if you're in the bedroom, how did your slippers end up in the living room? Sophia responded, Master, you've forgotten. Yesterday, you carried me in and we slept together. She smiled shyly, then walked over to the wardrobe, pulling out 2 freshly ironed shirts, saying, Master, these are the clothes I picked for you. It's 30 degrees Celsius today, a bit hot. Which one do you want to wear? After helping Makoto change, she stood up and said, All right, I'm going to prepare breakfast for Master now. With that, Sophia went upstairs toward the kitchen. She was a perfect service-type orc, just not for me. As she passed by me, she coolly said, George, I put my clothes in the laundry basket. Remember to send them for dry cleaning. But the next moment, she suddenly asked, What's that smell? I replied in confusion, What smell? She stepped closer, placing her hand on my chest, and sniffed around me. The more she sniffed, the deeper her brows furrowed. She asked, George, why do you smell like another cat? I remained silent. My gaze shifted over her head and landed on Willow, who had just walked out of the room. Willow had a seductive figure, with striking features, completely different from Sophia's petite and delicate type. Sophia's gaze on Willow was light, but for some reason, it made my nerves tighten. It's my scent. Willow blinked and said. Sophia immediately turned around, her fur standing on end. She growled, the sound rising in her throat. Willow stood still, silently confronting her. George, who is she? I replied. Her name is Willow. She's my new orc. What? Sophia looked at me in disbelief. You got a new orc? She asked. What about me? Makoto, watching the scene unfold, loudly called out, Mom, Dad, come out and see. My brother got a new orc. Hearing the noise, my parents came out one after another and looked at Willow. I took the initiative to hold Willow's hand and introduced, Mom, Dad, this is our new family member. Her name is Willow. Willow slightly lowered her head and said, Sir, Madam. Makoto sized Willow up from head to toe, swallowed, and said, She's even more beautiful, with a better figure. Must be high grade, right? Very expensive. Ah, brother, you really are rich. High grade my ass. Sophia's face turned red, fuming. She still wears a muzzle like a wild beast. Stinky leopard, filthy and smelly. Her fur is split, and her clothes are poor quality. Look at all the fur she sheds on the floor. She continued. She's clearly a low-tier orc from the adoption center that no one wanted. She then said, George, you're just bringing her back to spite me, aren't you? If she goes wild one day and bites someone or gives you some dirty disease, you'll regret it. Upon hearing this, my parents' faces became worried. My dad said, George, I'm not against you keeping one, but I just want you to be careful. We don't want to lose you again. Willow, however, quietly said, I won't bite anyone. I'm clean. She pressed her lips together and added, If you're worried, I can always wear these and sleep in a cage every night. Cage? Sophia sneered and said, Only fight arena orcs sleep in cages. Even beast slaves used for venting are treated better. I've already decided to keep her. I stepped in front of Willow, my voice cold as I said, Sophia's living expenses are covered by my parents, but Willow's are my responsibility. George, Sophia shrieked at me. Hey, don't be angry. Makoto patted her back and said, Given George's upbringing, it's normal for him to prefer low-tier orcs. He laughed. Mom, Dad, since my brother has a new orc, Sophia should come to me, right? After all, she always preferred me. He continued. I'll take the leftovers from my brother. You won't object, right? The word leftovers made Sophia's face turn pale. She glared at me, her eyes reddening. I immediately responded. No, I firmly refused. I said. Sophia was given to me by Mom and Dad. She's mine, and I have the right to decide what happens to her. My strong stance seemed to please Sophia. For the first time, I saw her raise her tail at me, though her expression was awkward and aggrieved. Her tail involuntarily raised slightly. Realizing this, she tried to control it and said, "Even if you say that, I still won't forgive you." But I wasn't reluctant to part with her. First of all, my parents provided for Sophia's living expenses generously. I could pocket a good amount. Secondly, Sophia was worth a lot. If I didn't want her anymore, I could sell her for a 7-figure sum. There was no way I'd just hand her over to Makoto. My parents also agreed. George is right. Since we gave her to George, she's his. If you want her, go negotiate with him. Chapter 9. Makoto wasn't stupid enough to actually come and talk to me. Sophia was still upset. In the past, during meals, although she was reluctant, she would still sit beside me. This time, she directly sat next to Makoto and obediently served him food. I carefully removed Willow's bite stopper, revealing her exquisite and bright face. Not just Makoto, even my parents were stunned. "Thank you." Willow hesitated for a moment and, copying Sophia, served me some food, learning from others. "Ah." Sophia snorted coldly. "George doesn't like eggplant." I raised an eyebrow. When she sat beside me before, she never served me, yet she remembered my preferences. Willow said, "I'll remember from now on." She seemed very nervous. Her hand trembled, and she accidentally dropped her chopsticks onto the floor. "Sorry." Willow bent down to pick them up, still wearing her poor quality t-shirt since I hadn't had a chance to buy her new clothes yet. As she bent over, a ripping sound echoed, and her chest instantly came undone. The room fell silent. I hurriedly took off my jacket and wrapped it around her, saying, "Here, wear mine for now." My mom glanced at me and said, "Let Willow stay in the top floor room." We lived in a 3-story villa. What my mom meant was the small rooms on the top floor, kind of like tiny storage rooms. There was only a simple wooden bed inside. Most importantly, the room had an iron door, which was locked from the outside. Sophia became happy again. She said, "She should sleep in a cage." I replied, "Not yet. She'll sleep with me for now. The doctor said I have excessive liver heat, so I really need her during this period." My mom felt a bit awkward. My dad took over the conversation and said, "Don't you like Sophia? She listens well, and she won't bite." I replied, "She doesn't want to." I casually served Willow some food. Sophia was dissatisfied. "Who said that?" she said, fuming. "You didn't even come to talk to me. How do you know I don't want to?" I responded. "Is that so?" I laughed. "Didn't you say last time that you only wanted Makoto to touch you and that you wanted to save yourself for him?" Chapter 10. A few months ago. To help us bond, my parents took the whole family on a 7-day trip. The day we went camping and set up tents, we all drank a bit too much. Makoto kept calling me big brother. I kept calling him little brother. It was a brotherly bond, deep as could be. It made my parents so happy they immediately fell asleep. When I went outside for a smoke and came back, I saw Makoto in my tent. The campfire had already gone out, and in the darkness, only a small light was on. Sophia was lying on the sleeping bag I had set up, and Makoto was holding her, leaning in to kiss her lips. The shadows of the two intertwined on the canvas of the tent, like a silent movie. I could see Makoto's hand wandering unrestrained. Sophia gave a symbolic resistance, but in the end, she compromised. They kissed passionately. After enough, Makoto finally got up and said, "Sophia, can you promise me not to let him touch you yet?" Sophia hesitated, but Makoto coaxed her gently. "You know, I'm about to turn 18, just a few months away. If an orc has relations with a human under the age of 15, they would immediately be euthanized." Makoto continued, "I want your first time. Will you save it for me?" After a long silence, Sophia softly agreed. "Okay." Chapter 11. The video ended. The one with the worst expression was my dad. He angrily said, "Makoto, how could you do such a thing? To go as far as to fight with your brother and even compete for his orc?" Sophia, pale, looked at me and said, "George, that day I was just drunk. I thought it was you who came in." My dad immediately interrupted her. "Who do you think you are, speaking? I paid money to bring you here, not to have you come to my house and cause trouble, sowing discord. I'll call your dealer today and ask how they trained you." Makoto, instead of feeling guilty, gritted his teeth and questioned, "Dad, why aren't you saying anything about George? Don't you think he has ulterior motives? He recorded this and showed it to you all." "I admit I made a foolish mistake, but ever since my brother came back, you've been getting stricter with me. I'm the one who's been living with you for 18 years. Are you really just going to watch as George kicks me out of this house?" My mom was also furious and slammed her hand on the table. "Makoto, you made the mistake first, and now you're arguing. How did I raise such a son? You too. All your expenses for this month will be deducted and given to George. Now go to the top floor and stay in confinement for 3 days and reflect properly. A large sum of money was deposited into my account. It seemed like my parents were leaning more towards me again. Since I was a child, I always believed in one principle: if you want something, fight for it. I never worried about what I deserved or didn't deserve, because if I couldn't get it, then no matter how right I was, it didn't belong to me. I also didn't bother thinking about whether I was worthy or not, because getting what I wanted was my greatest sense of entitlement. Who said a parent's love must be unconditional? Chapter 12. 3 days passed without seeing George or Sophia. I was in a good mood, so I took Willow shopping crazily. Once again, I marveled at how she was truly a masterpiece. Where she needed to be thin, she was. Where she needed curves, she had them. She was a natural model for clothes. Anything she wore looked stunning. It made me want to buy everything for her. But the best part was how she looked in black stockings and a bodycon skirt. I angrily bought dozens of sets, until I was completely worn out. When we got home, Willow hung my coat, then squatted down to help me put on my slippers. I pulled her waist to me, gently pinching her chin, and asked, "Willow, with looks like yours, didn't they pressure you into selling yourself?" She said, "They did." Willow sat on my lap, facing me, her hands gently gripping my shoulders. She was very clever. She had learned all this by watching Sophia interact with Makoto. "Really?" I looked into her eyes and asked. "But from the way you looked yesterday, I thought you were inexperienced." Willow stiffened, her cheeks turning red as she explained, "I really am inexperienced." I looked confused. She hesitated for a moment and said, "Because I hurt a customer and ran away." She bit her lip and continued, "They caught me and I refused to eat or drink in protest. Eventually, they were afraid I'd die and lose money, so they threw me into the fight arena. For 3 days, I didn't eat. I was so hungry. I don't even know how I did it, but I ended up breaking that orc's neck. Then I stayed in the arena, and they were afraid I'd fight back, so they only fed me a little every time. The last time I was seriously injured, they figured I'd really die this time, so they sent me to be used for venting." She said, "But I survived. They were talking about sending me back this week, and then you bought me." Willow's long tail flicked anxiously behind her. She probably didn't realize how seductive her current position was. She said, "I don't want to hide anything from you. I'm really a lowly, inferior orc. I've hurt humans and even hurt my own kind. Since I was little, I've never had normal contact with humans. I've never learned how to take care of someone, and I don't even know how to properly use chopsticks. I don't know what to do to make you happy. I'm so afraid that if I make a mistake, you won't like me anymore. I really didn't mean it yesterday. I recalled last night. This kind of thing becomes more familiar with each time, and we became more in sync with each other. But when the symphony reached its finale, she couldn't control herself, her fingers digging deeply into my back. I couldn't help but take a sharp breath and said, "Ah, let go." Willow quickly realized, sitting up in a panic, and when she saw the marks she had scratched into my back, she whispered, "Sorry, I didn't mean to." "Sorry." She looked so aggrieved. "You can punish me, hit me, starve me. Any punishment is fine," she said. "Please don't ignore me." "Okay, master." It seemed like she apologized for a long time, but I, having satisfied myself, fell asleep without saying a word. No wonder she seemed so tense when she came out of the room in the morning. Turns out she was uneasy. I kissed her forehead and said, "It's not like that." I smiled. "I was just too tired after the workout yesterday and fell asleep." She gently nuzzled my round ears, and I couldn't resist rubbing them. Willow's breathing became slightly hurried. She leaned in close and lightly kissed my neck. It was the same place Sophia had sniffed earlier. I laughed and said, covering her scent. She belatedly realized what she was doing and lowered her head, as if she had done something wrong. I said, "It's fine. I don't mind. I just don't understand." I pinched her chin and said, "If you could go without food or water for 3 days to avoid selling yourself, how come you didn't resist me at all?" I asked. "Did you just give up?" She lowered her gaze slightly, avoiding my eyes, and said, "Maybe it's because you're young and handsome." I nodded in agreement. "That's indeed an irrefutable reason." She smiled lightly. "Maybe it's because you were so gentle with me that day. It gave me a sense of security." She continued, "Maybe it's because that was my first time feeling a kiss." She looked up and said, "I just want you to know that I'm truly a lowly orc, but I will always be loyal, always stay by your side, forever, forever." I said, "All right, I believe you." As a reward, I pushed her down and turned on top of her. I said, "Can we vent again, please?" Chapter 13. Willow and I got along harmoniously. I finally understood why some humans would spend lavishly on keeping an orc. When I was with Sophia before, it was nothing but trouble. As a high-grade orc, she had very high standards for her living environment. I had to exercise with her every day, prepare nutritious meals, force her to take fish oil, and help her with grooming and hair care. In short, a lot of steps were required to maintain her perfect condition. But Willow was different. She was naturally beautiful. All I had to do was follow the doctor's advice and supplement her nutrition, and she would glow with health and radiance. I felt a bit guilty for favoring one over the other. So, I decided to sit down with Willow and give her a grooming session. When Sophia walked in, I was in the bedroom, rubbing Willow's round ears, which were covered in soap foam. "George." Her eyes immediately turned red. "That's my special soap," I sighed and said. "This is a new soap I bought for Willow." I continued what I was doing and asked, "Did you come out of the small black room?" "Yes." Makoto walked out from behind her, staring at me and said, "Did your scheme succeed, big brother?" "Happy now," I replied. "Not happy. The punishment was too light," I said. "But I'll keep working at it." Sophia was still glaring at Willow. She said, "George, make her leave. I can explain the video, but I don't want to share a room with a low-tier orc," I said. "I didn't make you share a room with her," I shrugged and said. "Don't you always sleep with Makoto? Just go sleep with him again. Orcs have sensitive senses of smell and hearing." So, Sophia was the only one who knew about my smoking habit. Although I never smoked in the bedroom, she always complained about the smell of smoke in there. She used that as an excuse to sleep in Makoto's room. Makoto laughed and said, "It's fine, Sophia. You never liked him anyway, so isn't it perfect to be with me?" Makoto extended his hand to her. Sophia hesitated for a moment, and the next second, without a second thought, she intertwined her fingers with his. She bit her lip and said, "George, I hope you won't regret this." I smiled at Makoto and said, "Then I'll leave Sophia in your care." Chapter 14. The villa fell into a strange atmosphere. Sophia became even more indulgent toward Makoto for a period of time. Both of them, with some kind of goal in mind, performed affectionately in front of me. But for me, as long as they didn't start doing it in front of me, I could tolerate it. Willow, on the other hand, often stared at the two of them in a daze. Makoto started to get a bit too confident with Willow watching him. He often casually tossed his hair in a dominant manner. In reality, Willow was eagerly learning. She carefully observed Sophia's posture, the sequence of her actions, and then used all of it to serve me. Sophia, on the other hand, appeared dazed and absent-minded, staring at me in a trance. I knew why she was like this. A few days ago, I overheard an argument between them in Makoto's bedroom. Sophia said, "Master, it's been a long time since you've groomed and taken care of my fur." Makoto coldly replied, "You've got hands, don't you? Do it yourself. You want me to serve you for everything. Are you serving me or am I serving you?" Sophia responded, "But my daily supplies are all gone." Her voice sounded full of grievance. Makoto impatiently said, "Then ask George for it. Your living expenses aren't paid to my account." Sophia complained, "Makoto, why have you become like this? You used to like me so much. If you hadn't kissed me that day, George wouldn't be this angry." Sophia went on, "To love someone shouldn't be like this. George never thinks I'm a bother. He always grooms my fur every day." Makoto asked, "Blame me? Didn't you reject me back then? What are you pretending for?" Makoto mocked, "Now even you think he's better? Huh? Then go find him. See if he still wants you. Go ahead." Did Makoto really like Sophia? I doubt it. I'm more inclined to think that Makoto just wanted the sense of superiority from putting someone else beneath him. Though this pursuit doesn't care whether it's deserved or not, whether it's a match or not. It's different from striving for something because you want it. The pursuit of superiority isn't about the spoils of victory being plentiful, but about the victory itself. So, once the goal was achieved, the spoils lost their meaning. After this conversation, Sophia became even more haggard. She often looked at me, wanting to say something but holding back, probably too embarrassed to come to me for reconciliation. I pretended not to notice, until one night. I was on the second-floor balcony, smoking a cigarette after. Suddenly, Sophia hugged me from behind. She didn't say anything. She pressed her head against my back, and her warm tears soaked into my sleepwear. I didn't move, asking, "You don't mind the smell of smoke on me?" "Sorry," she said, rubbing her head against my back. Her voice was full of grievance. "Please forgive me." I chuckled but didn't speak. She said, "I was really drunk that day, believe me or not. At first, I really thought it was you kissing me." I nodded and said, "I believe you." I added, "If you knew it was Makoto kissing you, you wouldn't have resisted at all." She replied, "It's not like that," Sophia anxiously explained. "Before I transformed, Makoto and I were homeless on the streets. I almost got kidnapped by a group of people. He rushed in and protected me, shouting and attracting a lot of attention, which made those people give up and let me go." She said, "You are my master, but he saved my life. Since he doesn't like you, I can't accept your kindness." She continued, "In the tent that time, I really thought it was you. I wished it was you. But when I opened my eyes and saw him, I felt so disappointed. That's when I realized I had already liked you." She said, "But he saved my life, and I really can't refuse him." I scoffed and said, then you can continue to repay him. I never stopped you from doing so, George. Sophia hugged me tighter, her tail even wrapping around my waist. Don't do this, please, I sighed, turned to look at her, and said, Sophia, do you know why I smoke? I said. Because I grew up following a group of delinquent punks, wandering the streets. When I was caught stealing and beaten, they were there, taking the hits with me. When I had a high fever and passed out, they scraped together money to take me to a small clinic for an injection. I said. Look, I've been given more favors than you, but you don't see me agreeing to everything anyone asks of me, do you? I said. One person can save your life, another can open up to you. There are many reasons to get close to someone, Sophia. It's in your nature. Anyone who flatters you, you'll follow. I don't know. Sophia's eyes were red, and she buried her head into my chest, crying harder. She said, Sorry, George, you never mentioned the past. I didn't know you went through all of that. She said, I only heard Makoto tell me how much he hates you. I always thought it was you taking things from him, including me, that I should have belonged to him. If I had known, I would never have minded your smoking. I wouldn't have helped Makoto upset you. Sophia's tear-soaked face pressed against my neck, and my previously blocked view cleared. In the dark hallway, two figures stood still, one near and one far. The closer figure was Willow, the figure in the distance. I squinted and met my dad's gaze. The hand holding the cigarette paused for a moment but didn't hide it. Well, if he saw. When we got home, I glossed over the struggles of the past 10 or so years. The adopted son they had carefully cultivated, well-versed in financial management, skilled in equestrianism and golf, fluent in multiple languages, and me, skilled in smoking, stealing, and picking locks. I didn't think my parents would love me if they lost me and immediately replaced me with another son a year later. To be honest, if I said all the unpleasant things, they probably wouldn't feel sympathy for me. Instead, they would probably watch me more carefully, fearing I might steal again. That would also give Makoto ammunition to attack me. So I just showcased a pretty resume, delivered excellent results, and pretended to have a broad perspective. I acted as though I were competing for the position of their son. Chapter 15. Go to bed early. My dad gave a brief reminder and then went back to his room. The pitch-black hallway was left with only Willow's figure. She quietly watched Sophia bury her head into my chest, rubbing against me. It's chilly at night, she whispered. Only then did Sophia realize Willow was behind her. She turned around and huffed at her again. I found it amusing. Sophia, a well-trained service-type orc, kept being pushed into her primal instincts by the calm Willow. Willow wasn't angry. She smiled lightly and said, I just wanted to give my master a jacket. She took a few steps closer, and Sophia naturally backed away. Willow gently draped the jacket over me, then looked at Sophia and said, You can continue now. Sophia didn't hold back. She said, Master, can I stay with you tonight? I've studied those things too. I know many positions. I'll definitely be able to please you more than she can. I asked. Really? I raised an eyebrow. Sophia's cat ears twitched as she said, Really, Master? Let me make up for what I've done, please. Willow's expression didn't change, but the hand at her side clenched tightly. I said, Forget it. Thinking about you kissing Makoto just makes me lose all interest in you. Good night, Sophia. Chapter 16. Willow followed me into the bedroom. I casually took off my jacket and turned to look at her, saying, Are you jealous? She lowered her head and took the jacket, saying, No. She added, Master is very outstanding. You'll have a girlfriend and a wife in the future. I know my place. She asked, Do you want to take a bath, Master? I, who had planned to crawl into bed, asked, What? She said, You've got Sophia's tears and scent on you. Speechless, I sighed and got up to head to the bathroom. Willow followed closely behind. She said, Master. She knelt on the floor, looking up at me. I reached out and patted her ear, asking, What's wrong? She said, This won't get clean like this. She asked, Can we take it off temporarily? She pointed to the bite stopper and said, It might be cleaner this way. I hesitated for a few seconds and bent down to remove the bite stopper. I couldn't help but sigh again. She truly was a beauty. Chapter 17. I stopped having Willow wear the bite stopper. Although my parents repeatedly reminded me to be careful, they didn't interfere. I worked at my own company, and I usually didn't return home for lunch. But on this day, I felt like taking a nap, so I decided to go home and sleep. Just as I was drifting off, I heard Willow and Sophia's voices from the living room. I leaned on the second-floor railing, watching. Willow sat gracefully in the living room watching TV. Sophia stood in front of her, her fur standing on end, and said, Do you really think George likes you? He's just using you to piss me off. Once he's done venting, he'll toss you. This inferior orc. Aside. Willow snorted, unfazed, and said, So what? George said you're dirty. At least I'm clean. If anyone wants to touch me, I'll bite their neck off. Not like you. Pretending and half accepting. Interesting. Willow was usually submissive, helpless, and obedient in front of me. This was the first time I saw her with thorns. Sophia retorted. Clean. You're a fight arena orc. Do you really think you're clean? You don't know how many of your kind you've killed. Willow smiled faintly. Glad you know. She continued slowly, saying, actually, I find you a bit in the way. Sophia almost jumped in anger. She snapped. In the way. I was bought by George for millions. Besides, I came here long before you. You're the outsider here. You're the one who's in the way. Willow asked. Millions. You don't look worth that much to me. Willow stood up, looking at Sophia with interest, and said, do you know where to bite on the throat to make sure the other person can't make a sound? She stepped forward, speaking slowly. Only a low-tier orc like me would know how to make an orc disappear silently. Right. Sophia sensed the threat. She nervously took a step back, her tail swishing uneasily, and asked, what do you want to do? What can I do? Willow shrugged. I'm just a low-tier orc. The moment she finished speaking, she suddenly lunged at Sophia. Sophia, startled, immediately transformed into her beast form, and the white ragdoll cat pounced on Willow, who was much taller than her. Her teeth and claws sank deeply into Willow's arm. Willow was knocked into the coffee table, and the sound of porcelain shattering filled the room, with pieces scattering everywhere. Sophia froze. She never expected that Willow's move was just a feint. When my mom rushed out upon hearing the noise, what she saw was Willow, pushed to the ground by Sophia, her arm bleeding heavily. She asked, what happened? Willow covered her bloody arm, her face pale, struggling to sit up. She said, sorry, ma'am. I've been too clingy to my master lately and made Sophia upset. I'll be more careful from now on. I pretended not to know and came downstairs, feigning surprise as I asked, Willow, what happened? She said, Master. Willow lowered her head, her lips pressed together, looking weak. She said, it's nothing, just a small injury. It's nothing compared to the injuries I've had before. I struggled to hold back my teasing. Yesterday, she claimed not to be jealous, not to mind. But today, she was already plotting how to trap Sophia. Sophia rambled. No, George, she attacked me first. She's framing me. You believe me, don't you? I said. She's framing you. I pressed on Willow's wound and asked, if she really wanted to hurt you, do you think you could still stand here in one piece, George? I didn't. I really didn't. Sophia was on the verge of tears. My mom, furious, grabbed her phone and said, I'm calling the seller to return her right now. It's fine, Mom. I already asked. The return window's closed, I said while tending to Willow's wound. I have a friend who's interested in buying a high-grade orc. I'll sell her to him. My mom hesitated for a moment and said, well, it's your thing, George. Sophia's face was filled with despair as she choked out, you're really going to sell me for her? You used to like me, when you couldn't sleep. Only holding me made you sleep well, she said. I saw you write in your journal that you were so lonely in the new house, and that you were glad to have me with you. Even though you didn't like me, you would secretly touch my ears when I was asleep, she continued. When you were drunk, you even asked me why I didn't like you, why I was always siding with Makoto. George, I don't believe you have no feelings for me. I wasn't as detached as I thought I was. When I first arrived at the unfamiliar new home, I did feel unsettled. Seeing my parents favoring Makoto still made me feel unbalanced. Thinking about how he took the life that should have been mine, my heart was still full of anger. When I first found out that my birthday gift was an orc, I really was genuinely happy. But that happiness was ultimately crushed by her. I said, you're overthinking. I calmly met her gaze and said, to me, you're just a cat who sneaks around for a little pleasure. It wouldn't be a loss to throw you away. Chapter 18. I acted quickly. The next day, Sophia was sent away. My friend was just a dealer. I didn't inquire about where she was going. Her new owner might use her for breeding. Maybe she would meet a master who would pamper her more. But with me, she had already completed her mission. That is, the exchange for money. Willow, still lying on the bed, looked weak as she recovered from her injury. I remembered the first time I saw Willow. Her injury was worse than this, but that night, she still clung to me for more activity. Now, she said, thank you, master. Willow weakly took the chicken soup, and asked, Sophia, was she sent away? I said. Yes. I raised an eyebrow. She said. Such a pity. Willow stared at the porcelain bowl in her hands, and said, I really wanted to get along with her. I asked, should I bring her back? You two can be good sisters. Willow's fingers froze for a moment, and she said, but she's already been bought. They probably wouldn't accept a return. I said, it's fine. I'll just compensate them a little money. Willow was speechless. Willow carefully squeezed the porcelain bowl in her hands to prevent it from falling. She bit her lip and said with difficulty, "Well, that would be great," I said. "I'll go right now." I pretended to get up. She said. "But," Willow stopped me. I asked, "What's wrong?" She raised her eyes. Looking at me nervously, she said, "What if she bites me again? What should I do?" I didn't say anything, just smirked, watching her leisurely. Her expression shifted from nervousness to anxiety, then to helplessness, before settling into surprise. She asked, "George, do you already know?" "I don't know," I shrugged, "but you can tell me. Where exactly do I need to bite the throat to keep the other person from making any sound?" Willow instantly panicked. She stammered, "I'm sorry. I only did it because she provoked me so many times. Please, Master, don't send me away," she said. I was just scaring her. "I'll be very obedient," I said. "It's fine." I leaned in closer to her and said, "Actually, I quite like your wild nature." In some ways, Makoto and Sophia were the same type of person. They were so full of themselves because of the love they received, thinking too highly of themselves. But Willow and I were the same type, because if I were her, I'd probably do the same thing. Chapter 19. Sending Sophia away kept Makoto in check for 2 months. Until his 18th birthday, my parents gave him a house as a gift. I tried to keep smiling, but inside, I was burning with rage. If only I could carry the house, I thought. I wanted to shout like he did, "The house is mine," then run off with it. My colleagues always found it strange. Someone asked, "Isn't all your parents' money eventually going to be yours? Why bother with small change like deducting Sophia's living expenses?" That's exactly why. One day, when they make a will leaving everything to Makoto, I won't have lost out, right? What's in my hands is mine. Makoto arrogantly came with my parents to flaunt in front of me. "George, it's my birthday, and you, as the older brother, aren't going to give me anything. That's really inconsiderate." I stopped pretending and asked, "What should I give you? What else do you want?" "Everything you eat, wear, and use. Aren't they all supposed to belong to me? And now you still have the nerve to ask me for a gift and call me inconsiderate. Look at your smug face. What a joke." Makoto froze, but he quickly recovered, furiously shouting, "Mom, Dad, do you see this? Today is my birthday, and he actually insults me. I told you. He's been pretending all this time, but you didn't believe me." My parents paused for a moment and then tried to mediate. "George, it's still Makoto's birthday today. Let's keep it down and talk about the other things tomorrow." "Okay, but I wasn't in the mood for false pleasantries," I said. "What birthday? Did you even give birth to him? It's his birthday, but where were you when he ruined my birthday?" I sneered and continued. "I only went missing for a year, and you were already rushing to find a replacement. Do you even know what I was doing back then? I had just escaped from human traffickers. I was shuffled between orphanages. No one wanted me, and I had to sleep in a police station." "George, calm down." My dad patted my shoulder to comfort me. "You're right," he said. "Your mother and I have discussed it. It's our fault. We didn't dare to bring up the past because we were afraid it would bring up bad memories. We didn't realize you had things to say to us but couldn't express them." He continued. "You didn't trust us, and you didn't dare to be your true self in front of us. That's our fault." His voice grew heavier as he continued. "We missed your childhood. We gave everything that should have been yours to Makoto." He spoke slowly. "So, we've decided that aside from this house for Makoto, all of our assets and properties, everything, will be yours. Tomorrow, we'll transfer 20% of the company shares to you. The rest will be formalized in an unchangeable will." He added, "Tomorrow, I'll take you to handle the paperwork and transfer 20% of the company shares to your name. As for the remaining shares, your mother and I will prepare a will, and when we're no longer here, everything will be yours." Makoto, who had been smugly watching the scene, was immediately drenched with cold water. He froze. With a dazed look, he said, "What the hell? Mom, Dad, what did you just say? Why?" His voice trembled, and his eyes were full of disbelief. My mom sighed heavily, her voice tinged with exhaustion. She said, "Makoto, when we brought you home from the orphanage, we never wronged you. We gave you the best education and made sure you had everything. We'll keep supporting you until you graduate from college. This house, we're leaving to you as your adoptive parents. We've done our duty." She paused and continued, "All these years, you've enjoyed all of our love, so the money and the remaining assets will go to George. He's the child we owe the most." Makoto exploded. "What do you mean? Saying you love me but giving the money to him? Are you crazy?" Makoto broke down, but no matter how he raged this time, my parents didn't change their minds. I successfully got the shares. The will was already notarized. Makoto, in a fit of anger, went to a distant city for university. His departure actually helped ease the tension between me and my parents. Later, I accidentally saw him selling the house at a low price. I don't know what his problem is, but I won't help him. Chapter 20. It was an ordinary day. The sunlight poured through the floor-to-ceiling windows, wrapping the entire living room in a warm glow. I held a public welfare project approval document, turned, and waved it in front of Willow, who was sitting on the sofa. I said, "Surprise." She leaned in, her ears brushing against me as she gently nuzzled, asking, "What surprise? What made my master so happy?" I turned around and pulled her into my arms, my voice slowing as I said, "You know that vendor who sold you to me, along with the fight arena behind it, and the entire illegal industry chain dealing in venting dogs? Well, didn't they all get caught? But the problem is, there are still a large number of orcs left without being adopted. If no one takes care of them, they'll have to face euthanasia." I held out the document in front of her eyes and said, "So I applied with the company, and I also chipped in some money myself, turning this into our company's charity project. We've even opened a rescue center. I want you to handle the management of this rescue center. How does that sound?" I smiled and said, "Not bad. You know, I've had my fair share of street experience, and we value loyalty in our circles." She stared at me blankly, stunned for a while, before suddenly wrapping herself around me and planting a kiss on my lips. This kiss was different from before. It wasn't awkward or tentative, nor was it cautious flattery, but full of seriousness, as if she wanted to give herself to me completely. The afternoon sunlight slanted down on her, casting a warm golden hue on her ear tips and the ends of her hair. "George," she said eagerly, pressing herself closer to me, her breath hot. "What can I do to repay you enough?" I lazily leaned back on the sofa, watching the reddened corners of her eyes, and smiled slyly. "Simple. I just want your loyalty for the rest of your life." Willow, Extra Chapter. Chapter 1. I encountered a pervert again, but this one's a bit stupid. As a low-tier orc, I could easily be adopted for free from any orc rescue center. Yet this guy actually spent $50,000 to buy me. He buried his head in my medical report, swiftly transferred the money, and then grabbed my collar. I've encountered many cruel humans. The ones who ask to see a medical report are the cruelest. They use the limits of my body to inflict the most pain, leaving me in agony, unable to survive, unable to die. He was driving a supercar. I sat in the passenger seat, my gaze unintentionally falling on the hand he had on the steering wheel. In a while, he'll probably tighten his grip around my neck, won't he? I looked him over. He was dressed in a suit, his expression righteous. I thought, if I really wanted to resist, even if I couldn't beat him, I could probably bite him and escape. But the cost of hurting a human is too great. I can't bear it a second time, but I will resist, even if it costs me my life. Chapter 2. At the hotel. He didn't give any orders. I could only stand there in silence. Am I scared? I guess I've become a bit numb. He came out of the shower, his voice gentle as he asked, "Do you want to take a shower too?" From my experience, the more gentle they are, the more perverse they tend to be. He really stacked up a lot of buffs. Okay, I admit it, I'm still a little scared. This refined scoundrel might be even worse than I imagined. I rarely get to feel warm water flowing over me, so I started to wonder if I would die in his hands. The bathroom door suddenly opened. Is he coming? I clenched my arm, ready to fight back at any moment. The next moment, he touched my wound. A tingling sensation spread across the injury. "What are you doing?" I couldn't help but ask. He replied, "Venting." It finally hit me. Did he think this was the kind of venting? I should explain, but I'm so addicted to his touch. "No one has ever treated me like this," I repeatedly told him. "I'm just a low-tier orc. I'm not worth being treated like this." Chapter 3. I overheard the doctor talking to him. "I still suggest you don't keep such a low-tier orc, especially one with such a background. Although her face and body are indeed nice." My heart tightened. I don't want to go back to that old life. I could eat less, keep myself hungry, and it wouldn't pose a threat to you. Give her a chance. George shrugged. After all, I'm also considered low-tier by others. The doctor laughed and asked him, "Don't you already have a high-grade orc?" He said, "I plan to sell her. Can you help me find a new owner?" I was shocked, my lips uncontrollably curling into a smile. "Sure," the doctor nodded. "If she's difficult to train, it's better to sell her." Chapter 4. He had other orcs at home. I wasn't surprised. What did surprise me was how ungrateful this orc was. High grade. Aside from her service skills, she's useless. That night, I took the initiative for the first time. I really didn't understand this kind of thing. I didn't know why I couldn't control myself. I didn't understand why I scratched my master's back. I spent the night anxious, crying, wondering if he would discard me. The next morning, I woke up and found that he had already left. That made me even more uneasy. I opened the door and saw that shameless cat-type orc sniffing all over him. Idiot. She couldn't even notice me behind her. No wonder she got sold. Chapter 5. I accidentally ripped my clothes. Both the master and mistress looked displeased. They probably already thought I wasn't presentable anymore. Sigh. Chapter 6. Lately, Makoto and Sophia. Those two idiots are getting more and more of an eyesore. I want to kick them out, but I haven't completely learned all of Sophia's serving skills yet. Better to endure a bit longer. Besides, with her around, she makes me look more loyal, more beautiful, and more worth the price. Chapter 7. I accidentally overheard the two idiots quarreling. Makoto said, "If I hadn't been afraid of Mom and Dad blaming me for losing you back then, I never would have saved you. You're just an ungrateful wolf." Makoto's voice was so grating. He's monopolized all of George's resources, yet still repeatedly chooses the wrong path. Must be a gene problem. Oh right, when I did a genetic test recently, I found out that I'm actually descended from a line of high-grade orcs too, but I don't want to be some high-grade orc. I just want to be George's most beloved cat. Chapter 8. While George stepped out for a smoke, that bitch ran off to seduce him again. Always jealous, always crying. So cheap, truly an eyesore. Chapter 9. Success. I finally got her sent away. George found out it was my doing, but he didn't blame me at all. Maybe this is what open favoritism looks like. I'm not intolerant of others. I'm just removing obstacles for my master. Chapter 10. George says he's a non-marriage type, but that's fine. I'll just be his little cat who always loves him forever.